Some mornings you wake up and feel like you're already behind. Before the day even begins, there's a pressure pressing on your chest, a whisper that says, you're not doing enough. Or worse, you're not enough. This feeling doesn't always come from failure itself. It comes from the stories we've been taught to believe about success. The idea that if we're not constantly achieving, we're wasting our lives. The belief that struggle means we're broken. That rest means laziness. That gentle progress is failure in disguise. But the truth is quieter than those voices. The truth is you are not failing. You're surviving in a world that measures worth by speed, by milestones, by medals, by perfection. And none of those things know how to measure a soul. They don't see the courage it takes just to stay. To wake up each day and try again. To keep breathing when your heart is tired. That is not failure. That is grace. But we don't give grace to ourselves isolated. We compare timelines. We scroll through the curated highlight reels. We forget that real life is quieter, messier, slower. Healing is not linear. Growth doesn't always look like success. Sometimes it looks like pausing. It's like taking a nap instead of crossing off tasks. Like crying in the shower instead of holding it all together. Like saying no when you're expected to say yes. That is not failure. That is truth. It's a kind of truth we aren't taught in school. It's a kind of truth that lives in soft hearts and tired hands. You feel like you're failing because you care. You want your life to mean something. You want to do right by others, by yourself, by the dream. But no one taught you that doing your best doesn't always look impressive. Sometimes it just looks like getting through the day. You are not behind. You're not broken. You're building a quiet strength. One choice at a time. One breath at a time. One gentle step forward, even when no one sees it. You are not meant to live at the pace of pressure. You are allowed to go slow. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be human. You are enough even when you feel like you're not. Even when you doubt it. Even when your progress is invisible. Especially then, because that's when your truth is strongest. And you keep going despite the ache. When you keep hoping despite the fear, that is not failure. That is resilience. This world will never stop asking for more, but you don't have to keep giving everything. You don't have to perform your worth. Your value is not in your productivity. It's not in your resume or your income or your reputation. It's in your heart. It's in the way you keep showing up. In the way you love quietly. In the way you hold space for others, even when you're empty. That is something the world can't measure, but it's real, and it matters. You matter. Not for what you achieve, but for who you are. And who you are is already enough. Even in the mess. Even in the doubt. Even in the silence. You don't need to prove your life is valuable. It already is. Your breath is proof. Pain is proof. Your healing is proof. You are here. You are trying. You're doing better than you think. You are not failing. You're finding your way. Slowly, gently, honestly, that is enough. Yet is brave. That is beautiful. Let yourself believe it. Let yourself rest in it. Let yourself become in your own time, without pressure, without shame, without fear. You are not failing. You are unfolding. And your unfolding is worthy of love. Failure is a story we're told before we ever get to define success. It's planted in our minds by systems that need us to strive endlessly. To buy, to hustle, to compare, to compete. It's a trap that keeps us feeling small, because small people are easier to control. But your life is not a race. Your healing is not a contest. Your worth is not a product. You don't owe anyone evidence of your growth. You only owe yourself honesty and gentleness and space to exist, even when it's messy. We confuse exhaustion with effort. We think burnout means we're working hard enough. But often burnout is a sign of disconnection from our needs, from our pace, from our real aching selves. You're not failing because you're tired. You're tired because you've been carrying too much for too long. You've been pretending it's fine, smiling while hurting, showing up when you needed rest, saying yes when your heart was screaming no. That isn't failure. That is survival. And survival is never shameful. You don't need to do more to matter. You don't need to achieve to earn rest. Rest is your right. Stillness is sacred. And stillness is often where the truth finds us. The truth that your timeline doesn't have to match anyone else's. The truth that your pace is not a flaw. The truth that there is nothing wrong with you, even if you don't have it all together. Even if some dreams haven't come true yet. Even if you still feel lost. There's wisdom in being lost. There's humility in admitting you don't know. There's grace in beginning again. Not because you failed, but because you're human. Being human means being unfinished. In motion, in evolution, in constant return to self. You don't have to chase someone else's definition of success. You can redefine it. You can make it quieter, softer, kinder. Maybe success isn't a destination. Maybe it's a feeling of coming home to yourself, of choosing presence over pressure, of knowing you're enough without needing to prove it. Maybe that's what you're really searching for. Not applause, not perfection, but peace. And peace rarely looks impressive. It looks like a deep breath. It's like a quiet morning with no agenda. It's like forgiving yourself for being tired. It's like letting go of timelines that were never yours. That is not giving up. That is returning. Returning to who you were before shame told you to hide.
Nice.
Returning to the softness you buried to survive. Returning to a life that doesn't hurt to live.
Nice.
And that kind of life is worth everything, even if no one sees it.
Nice.
Even if no one claps for it. You will know it by the way your soul exhales, by the way your body stops bracing, by the way your heart says, finally. You are not failing. You are remembering. You are rebuilding. You are realigning. Slowly, tenderly, truly, your story is still unfolding. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's, because it's yours, and that alone makes it sacred. Keep going, not for the world, not for the noise, but for you. For the small, brave voice inside you, whispering, try again. Whispering, you're not done yet. Whispering, this too is part of your becoming. So let it be part of your becoming, without shame, without rush. There's a quiet pain in feeling like you're never enough. Even when you meet expectations, the silence inside still aches. Because this pain isn't about what you haven't done. It's about all the ways you've learned to measure your worth. It's by how useful you are, by how pleasing you are, by how well you shrink yourself to fit the room. That shrinking is what hurts the most. You've spent years editing yourself, softening your needs so others wouldn't leave, apologizing for simply existing, smiling when you wanted to scream. That's not failure. That's adaptation. Survival tactic in a world that rewards silence over truth. But survival is not the same as living. You deserve more than survival. You deserve space to be. Not for what you produce, but because you are, you exist. And that is already meaningful. But the fear of being a disappointment runs deep. It whispers that unless you're always succeeding, you're failing. Unless you're always pleasing, you're losing love. But real love doesn't ask for performance. It asks for presence. It welcomes your truth, even when it's messy, even when it's quiet, especially then. You don't have to be extraordinary to deserve peace. You don't have to be the best to be lovable. You don't have to win to be worthy. The truth is, you already are. You've just been told otherwise for so long. By broken systems, by tired parents, by wounded peers, by voices that didn't know how to love you. So now you're learning to love yourself. Gently, slowly, with patience. You are not a failure for needing time. You are not weak for needing rest. You are not broken for feeling lost. These are all signs you are still alive, still reaching, still healing. And healing is not linear. It curves and bends and loops. It drags you backward before pushing you forward. All of that counts. All of it matters. You matter. Even when you're not accomplishing anything. Even when you're just surviving. Even when you're just here. That is enough. That is more than enough. Because you are learning to hold space for yourself. To show up for your own heart. Even when it's heavy. Even when it's hurting. Like that is a kind of bravery no one sees. But it builds strength. Quietly. Patiently, honestly, and that strength is yours, not because you've earned it, but because you've grown it. Through every moment you didn't give up, through every tear you didn't explain, through every breath you kept taking when it all felt pointless. That is not failure, that is resilience, that is grace, is becoming. You don't have to arrive anywhere to be worthy. You don't have to impress anyone to belong. You already belong. In this moment. In this soft becoming, Let go of the idea that you're behind. You're not late, you're not wrong, you're not broken. You're a person becoming, and becoming is sacred. Let yourself rest. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself be. Even when it feels like not enough, because that feeling isn't truth. It's an echo from old pain, and you are allowed to outgrow it. Sometimes, the loudest critic lives in your own chest, whispering that you should have done more by now, that others are further ahead, that you've missed your chance. But this voice isn't your truth. It's your wound, still speaking. The wound of comparison, the wound of timelines that were never meant for you. Somewhere along the way, success became a race. But life is not a race. It's not a ladder. It's not a checklist to complete. It's a slow unfolding, personal rhythm, and yours is still valid, even if it's quiet. Even if it doesn't look like anyone else's, because there's nothing wrong with taking the long way, or needing to stop and catch your breath, or changing your mind halfway through. Your path is allowed to look different. Different doesn't mean lesser. It means it's yours. And that's what makes it beautiful. But the world rarely honors slow stories. It glorifies hustle and constant output, as if value is found only in productivity. But you are not a machine. You are a person with a heart, a nervous system, a history, and all of those things need gentleness, not pressure, not shame. Gentleness, especially on the hard days, especially when you feel behind. Because even in the pause, you are growing. Even in stillness, you are becoming. There's wisdom in your quiet seasons, depth in your slowness. But it's hard to see that when shame clouds your view. Shame tells you your pace is a problem, that your struggle is failure, that your detours are disgrace. But shame is a liar. It distorts. It reduces you to outcomes. But you are more than your outcomes. You're more than your moments of doubt. You are more than your hardest day. Those moments do not define you. They shape you. Yes, but they do not diminish you. You are still whole, still enough. Even when the world feels heavy, even when everything slows to a crawl, even when you need to stop. Pausing is not failure. It's wisdom. It's listening. It's honoring your inner signals, and those signals matter. They are not signs of weakness. They are signs of aliveness. A life that feels is a life that heals. So let yourself feel it. The weariness, the grief, the confusion. Let it rise and fall like a wave, without judging it, without rushing it. You don't need to justify your exhaustion. You don't need to explain your pace. Your truth is valid, even if no one claps for it, even if no one understands it. You do not exist to be understood. You exist to be, fully honestly and with care. You are still worthy in the in-between, still lovable in the uncertain, still whole in the becoming. This is not the end of your story. It's a chapter, a breath, a turning point. And even if you can't see where it's leading, you're still allowed to be proud of surviving it, of moving through it, of not giving up. That is a quiet kind of success. One the world may never applaud, but your soul knows it deeply, and I hope one day you will too. You haven't failed. You're just healing in your own time. What if the story of failure you've been told isn't yours? What if it was passed down, inherited from fear, not truth? From a culture that rewards speed, perfection, and constant doing, but ignores the beauty of trying, resting, stumbling. The world taught you to measure yourself in trophies, in productivity, in flawless outcomes. But you are not a result. You are a process. A breathing, becoming, breaking, and rebuilding soul. There is no final version of you to achieve. It's only deeper layers to meet, more honest ways to show up. So if you're here struggling to feel like enough, that doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human, and being human is messy. But it is not failure. The fear of failure is often the fear of being seen as less successful, less valuable, less lovable. But your value is not a number, not a status, not an outcome. It is your presence, your breath, your ability to feel, to hope, to care. These are sacred, but often invisible. And that invisibility can feel like erasure, like proof you don't matter, but you do. Even when your efforts go unnoticed, even when your dreams are still seeds underground. Growth happens before it's seen. Healing happens in silence. So just because no one sees your becoming doesn't mean it isn't real. You are not behind. You are not broken. You're not lazy or failing. You are tired. You are carrying things no one sees. You are navigating a world that wasn't built for soft hearts. And still, you try. Still, you rise. Even when it's slow. Especially when it's slow. Because the slow path is not the wrong one. It's the real one. The sustainable one. It's the one that honors your humanity. You don't owe the world your burnout. You don't have to prove your worth through exhaustion. You don't need to wear achievement like armor. You can lay it down. You can rest. You can allow yourself to simply be. You are enough as is. It's not later. Not someday. Now, even in doubt. Even in fear. Even in what feels like failure. Because failure isn't what we think it is. It's not the end. Often it's the beginning. A doorway to self-understanding, to humility, to gentleness, to truth. It's the truth that you are not your productivity. You are not your resume. You are not your highlight reel. You are your presence, your intention, your quiet resilience. And that is enough. It's more than enough. Because the people who truly matter will love you for who you are, not just what you achieve. So give yourself that same love. Not earned, just offered, freely. Even on the days you don't feel worthy. Especially on those days. Because healing is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you are. Underneath the shame, beneath the fear, before the world told you you weren't enough, you were. You are, and you always will be. That's not failure. That's freedom. Sometimes the deepest pain is not in failing, but in believing that failure defines you. That your worth disappears with your mistakes. That if you don't succeed, you don't deserve to be seen. But you were never meant to earn your place here. It was always yours. You were born with value that cannot be measured or revoked. Even when the world told you otherwise. Even when your inner voice agreed, because that voice, the one that says you're not enough, is not your truth. It's your wound. And wounds can speak loudly. They whisper doubt into your quiet moments. They turn rest into guilt. Stillness into panic. They tell you to keep going even when you're empty. They tell you you're only lovable when you're achieving. But none of that is real love. Real love doesn't demand perfection. It makes space for the imperfect, for the broken days, for the tears and setbacks. Real love stays, even when you fall short. So why can't you offer that to yourself? Why must your compassion be conditional? Why does your heart only open when you've done enough? Enough is a moving target, a mirage, and chasing it will only exhaust you. Maybe it's time to stop chasing and start returning. Turning to the part of you that still believes in softness, second chances, in worth that can't be measured. Because the truth is, the world profits from your self-doubt, from your burnout, from your belief that you must constantly improve. But healing is not improvement, it's remembering. Remembering that your existence is not a problem to fix, that you can breathe without earning it, that you can rest without guilt, that failure is not a flaw. It's a fact of being alive. And it means you're trying. That in itself is courage. So if you feel like you're failing at life, pause and ask yourself, who told me this was failure? What if this is just life? Raw, hard, unpolished. What if this is growth, unfolding in a way that doesn't look glamorous? What if this is becoming slowly, quietly, visibly, but becoming still? The most beautiful transformations happen in the dark, where roots grow, where wounds knit themselves closed, where shame begins to unravel. So let go of the timelines, the expectations, the pressure to look okay, not just let yourself be. You are allowed to take up space in your own story, even when the pages are messy, even when the plot makes no sense, even when the chapter is heavy, especially then. So those chapters are sacred too. You don't have to be extraordinary to be worthy. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be present, breathing, here. That's enough. It's more than enough. So when the voice returns, the one that tells you you're behind, pause. Put your hand over your heart and whisper back, I am not failing. I am healing. I am growing. I am learning to stay. You don't have to rush your way to wholeness. You don't have to prove you're healing. You just have to live it gently, slowly, honestly. You are not failing at life. You are showing up for it bravely, tenderly, in your own way. That's not failure. That's faith. That's resilience. That's you becoming. Not what the world demanded, but what your soul always needed. And that is more than enough. This is quiet philosophy, where thinking isn't loud, and life doesn't need to be either. Subscribe if you haven't already, not for noise, but for something you can actually feel.